Okay, guys, thank you so much for coming and assembling with us today. I mean, this is going to be another fun AMA. Last time we were able to spend a lot more time together than we had planned on, but it's nice to be able to. So hopefully you guys feel free to pitch in and participate. I mean, this is definitely meant to be something to kind of help connect you with the production team for Beyond Humanity Colonies. Today we have the co-authors Max and Pawel, or you can call him Blowski if that's more fun for you. So we're going to start off in just a few minutes. We just want to say, thank you to everybody. I know everybody tends to start filtering in a little late, and we're not going to wait for huge crowds to come in because we also have a lot of people that download these things later. But I just want to go over what we're going to be talking about today. And then, of course, we are completely open for diversions, distractions, and tangents. But, we want to be able to talk to you guys about what's going on in the production process right now, because thankfully we've been able to continue to work and push forward. I know the global situation right now is really caused havoc with a lot of other game manufacturers, Kickstarter and otherwise. Thankfully, with the plan that we had to, do a entirely European-based production, this has worked out really well for us. So things haven't really been slowed down in a way that we're worried about our timeline. But the other things that we want to talk to you guys about are just what's currently been developed, what's been changing, and how we can kind of move on from here into the future, not only with delivery, but what comes after that. And that's probably what I'm looking forward to the most. But at any rate, let me try to get started. Max, Blowski, you guys here? You ready to talk a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, howdy, guys. Hi, guys.
Enthusiastic. Okay, so just to kind of get things rolling, I guess one of the first things that I think we should talk about is there's been this big addition to the Beyond Humanity universe. It was something that was discussed during the campaign, which was the online metagame, which is now Exogen, which is actually live in a beta. We have lots of people playing. A lot of people here listening are pretty active users on that. So I just want to ask you guys, let's talk about Exogen. We see a lot of people asking, how does this tie into the board game, and vice versa? How does the board game affect this online metagame? Can you tell us a bit more about what it is conceptually and in practice?
Well, Exogen is conceptually Exogen is built to be mostly a tool to find new planets to play the Beyond Humanity Colonies on. It looks like the game standalone because you can explore the universe. You can, as we can see, race across the universe to be the first on stars and planets in the systems. But actually, it was built as a tool for Beyond Humanity Colonies, the board game, the tabletop game, to find new planets to play your game on. Because there's a whole variety of planets that we provide in Exogen. They all have their conditions. They some of them may have atmosphere. Some of them don't have to have it, and we wanted to give all of them to you, and we give them in this form of Exogen.
Okay, yeah, and I have myself been pretty excited to play the game. It actually does feel kind of nice to step into a managerial role already and start trying to come up with a game plan for how to tackle the system, how to advance myself in game as this mega corporation spread across the stars. But now that's not necessary to play the board game, right? People can just play the game. It'll generate planets they'll be able to play on. They don't have to have pre-explored any of these things beforehand. Is that correct?
Yes, you don't have to be a master of Exogen to play the Beyond Humanity in the future, because you will have the some amount of planets that will give you the wide variety of choices if you want to play normal, hard, or extreme or easy play. So you will have it in the beginning. From Exogen, you can find some new specific, some planets that you would like to play exactly. For instance, I would like to play on rocky deserts with with atmosphere, so I can search for it in the Exogen and play on it while with my friends on Beyond Humanity Colonies. But if you don't play Exogen, you still have a wide variety of choices. That's what we are aiming for.
Yeah, I'm already kind of looking towards the future where it becomes this thing where I think a lot of the people who are playing now, where maybe it's not something that you're kind of thinking about all day, but you're probably thinking it throughout the day or throughout the week. You trying to remember where your missions are at, when you're going to be funded again to launch new things. And I'm seeing a future where people are getting ready to, plan a board game night with their friends who haven't played the game before. And then all of a sudden they realize like, oh man, I got to jump onto Exogen and like go send pioneers to a couple like easy planets or something like that, just so they have some more variety to like play with these new people. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on, how this will affect the way people approach the board game if they're really into Exogen?
Max?
Yeah, with pleasure. So the Exogen was created just to be a part of our ecosystem. So it wasn't meant to be a standalone game, as Pavel mentioned that just a while ago. But think of it as a giant map, a giant spreadsheet full of different planets, different scenarios that you may choose those different scenarios thanks to the certain game mechanisms that are embedded inside of our Exogen. So this is like a fundament of our world, because the source generator is working exactly in the very same way on an Exogen server, like it will be working on your table when you will be generating exactly the same planets directly on our 32-bit microprocessor that is located inside of an ARC tower. So this is just a creation that is tightening up this kind of experience that we wanted to create, that you understand that you are surrounded by different players, different corporations. Not only those players that are sitting in front of you, in front of an ARC tower on a table, but there are also other players that will be in a small factor affecting your gameplay. Those won't be damaging your corporation in any way. They will be just interacting and filling up this empty vast of space with the colonies, with the empires trying to build independent society of those newly born cities on those outer planets. So, as we've mentioned during our campaign, we've been really focusing on recreation of our Milky Way galaxy that will be scientifically accurate. I mean, like we were using database from NASA and TESS to create some kind of a learning algorithm to create proper worlds that will have proper variables describing them. Also, those are being used in the game. I mean, colonies will be using exactly the same parameters. So if you will be trying your luck on a very hard planet, and it will be very hard because it has got extremely hard environment. So probably you will have a lack of oxygen and even atmosphere. You will have huge problems with lack of any kind of liquids. The ground structures may be unstable, etc. But also other players will be facing exactly the same obstacles. So they will be creating those colonies on the same planet or different planets, filling this empty vast of space. Yeah.
Okay, so with the realism that we're going after, you say that this is probably a pretty amazing tool for any future astronauts who plan on being part of colonization missions in real life, right?
Definitely.
Okay, well, I mean, I know that I've had a lot more fun playing Exogen than I originally thought I was. Obviously, I've known about it for a really long time as it's been in pre-development and talking. But I just want to ask, like, you guys, now that it's out and changing and there's constantly being updates and improvements, is Exogen itself, has that changed away from how you originally envisioned it? Is it better? Is it just, different? Or maybe what are the things that you're looking forward to improving now? Like, where do you want to kind of like evolve this, or is it at this point just ready and it's only bug fixes from here?
Can I, Pavel?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome. So the biggest difficulty that we faced was that we didn't want it to create something that will be unplayable. So feedback was pretty much everything that we wanted to get from first alpha and afterwards beta. And this is kind of confusing because we thought that this will be an interactive map, but it became much more sophisticated and self-sufficient entity for our players. And right now they are just showing us the direction in which the whole project should be progressing. We are looking at evolution that is being based on a really natural reactions of our backers. And that's something extremely awesome. I just kind of love it because I see that people are investing their time. They are discussing with us different options and opportunities, and they are racing towards those systems and planets, trying to leave their tag on those. And we weren't prepared for that. I need to say that we thought that this will be a sophisticated, fancy-looking interactive map to fill up your library with different planets for our colonies, and also some kind of a environment in which we'll be presenting the storyline, and everything will be happening in real time, but 60 times faster than in our life. And that was just a tool. But right now it's becoming extremely important part of the whole Beyond Humanity universe, as I see, because people are reacting and they love it. So why we should just improve it and listen carefully what kind of features should show up in the system. Yeah.
Yeah, I think embracing it and taking that mentality, the customer is always right, is really going to help kind of make this a funner, more fleshed out thing. I mean, I've got to say, I really love how into it some people have been. Like, don't get me wrong, like I set timers on my phone and like, okay, well, this will get here, in 16 hours, 35 minutes, and 17 seconds. So I need to make sure I send the next thing right after. But obviously, when you're on Discord or Facebook, you find out other people are keeping spreadsheets to keep tabs on this. Some of them are using them strategically. Some of them are sharing their findings and working together, which, I mean, I love. That's really cool. I know we're planning on doing a mega corporation thing later, which is meant to officially group people together, which it seems like some people have figured out how to kind of, work in real life to jump the gun and do that. So that's really fun. But I do want to ask you just kind of like the last topic on the Exogen thing. One of the questions that we had from you guys was, is there, a way to take planets that you find in Exogen and use it in the board game, play it as a playable level for a colony?
Yes, of course. That's the main thing about the Exogen from the very beginning. You can just save the front planet in my library, part of Exogen, and our idea is that it will show up in your tabletop application. So the answer is yes.
The favorites. When you save something in the favorites, it goes into your library. And
exactly.
Okay, cool. All right. So now I just want to talk about maybe probably the most important thing. Like, obviously Exogen is new, fresh. It's kind of keeping people going and interested as we go through this production cycle. But we have this production cycle in front of us. We are, creating this game essentially from scratch. Obviously, a ton of the work was done before we even got to Kickstarter. But let's catch everybody up on where we're at now, because I know there's tons of development work that happened after the Kickstarter, but we're pushing into physical development. So what's kind of the next big big things that we have coming up to push us towards delivering on time?
Me.
Go with
Oh
it.
boy. I'm really surprised because you all guys know what kind of a situation the humanity right now is facing worldwide. So I'm kind of surprised. It isn't just like a pure luck. It's hard teamwork. Our guys were working tirelessly to make it happen. Currently, we aren't seeing any kind of obstacle that could slow us down, and we are still looking at the same delivery date than with promised on Kickstarter. We've got some bumps, we've got some problems, but all of those have been already those obstacles have been already taken care of. But we probably will see a lot of different problems in upcoming future. But currently, we've got a couple of really huge and impressive milestones behind us. Like, for example, we've got pretty much all electronics in terms of design and testing done. We are just finishing a couple of smaller things with 32-bit board, but those aren't problems. Those are features. We are adding more memory for save games and auxiliary fleets. But 8-bit, those that have been playing our game as a beta, gamma, or even alpha version probably remember that during last part of each game session, those modules were showing up, being discovered on a table after a bit longer time, like sometimes even minutes. Right now, it's less than 1 second, and it's completely idiot-proofed system. So even if you'll have a crazy dog that will run through the table, disconnect anything from a system, you may reconnect it back and it will show up in the game. So system is really solid. It's well built. I'm super happy about the code that we've created for it, about every solution that we've embedded in it. We've got a lot of different lightning solutions for those LEDs that we've got inside. But first of all, those 8-bit boards are already being mass produced, and we are talking about more than 50,000 PCBs, all corridors with lights inside. Those are being built right now as we speak. This is more than 17,000 of those pieces. And this week we are finishing preps for matrix, cutting, CNC, and testing. Next week, probably we are starting CNC cutting the molds for plastics. And we spend enormous amounts of time working on details to make it as optimal as possible, and also to have those possible for painting. So you will be able to disconnect bits and pieces to get those glass elements from inside and to work on a painting scan for your own. So all of those things were super complicated because this isn't like a normal part of every board game that usually you are buying on a Kickstarter. And so far, we've been super successful with all of those obstacles and all of those huge milestones that we've nailed.
Yeah.
Oh boy, I'm super happy about it.
If I may cut in, we have, for instance, the photo shoot behind us, and now we're focusing on creating the artwork from it for our cards, for our manual, for some promotion. We have, like Max said, super fast 8-bit PCBs that are going to be inside all modules. There are a few things ahead of us, but nothing to be afraid of, I think.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot of information. That's a lot to unpack there. I mean, Max, I'm just going to assume that when you say, if your dog comes running through and disconnects everything, that it's fine. I feel like that has to come from a personal life experience. But so
definitely,
go ahead.
My dog isn't playing with board games, and she's a very nice doggy, and we haven't got any problems. Even during Battlestar Galactica, we've been just fine with her, because usually during Battlestar Galactica, people are starting shouting at each other, "You are a traitor! No, you're a Cylon!" And she's usually hiding under the bed.
Okay.
But that's a side story, yeah?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna jump back in time real quick. We had one good question about Exogen, so we'll touch on that again. And it's, obviously right now we're seeing that clearly not every backer is involved in playing Exogen right now. They're not taking advantage of that aspect of the game. If that remains the same once they receive the game, who knows? But let's put ourselves in the shoes of someone who isn't playing Exogen. When they go to play the board game, are they just being randomly assigned planets somewhere in the system? Is it naturally putting them on planets close to Sol, or how is that worked as far as the colonization if you're not playing Exogen?
I'm responsible for that part of a project, so maybe me.
Okay.
Right now, we are 100% sure that people will be getting all exoplanets that are in a range of arc ships around Sol. And that means that you will have at least a few dozen of different planets. That's pretty much 16 jump units around Sol. So that gives you a full access to the Republic region in this case. And this gives you all kind of planets starting from very easy to even nightmare, so far as I remember. But there will be couple of other solutions to just use the board game and play on a much more in wider areas around different places. I need to carefully choose my words because I don't want to spoil the surprise. And this will give a lot of different opportunities for those players that won't be playing Exogen. They will just see those opportunities and those options on the list, because the My Library that is working directly in our system online, that is Metagame Exogen, will be also visible in an app, as we've mentioned before, but also you will be getting automatic readings of everything that you see in your near surroundings based on a starting point. And also after the first play, you will be already getting involved in Exogen, even passively. So if you will create your first colony, it will give you access to new areas because you will have extended range of your arc ships with this new colony that you will build.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's really cool. I like that. And it makes sense that they're not randomly spawning colonies somewhere across the universe. Having it kind of tied into the local neighborhood of where we currently are it makes sense. So now one of the questions that popped up that I think is a pretty good one, specifically because he mentioned tying things into his, hue lights, his RGB lights around the house, something I really love. A long time back, we talked about opening up some of the API stuff for the community so that we can, allow access to certain things. Now, for me, I'm not a programming guy, so it's hard for me to kind of keep track of these things. If it's something that's purely, if for some reason deep down the road we no longer have the time or ability to support, if it's just opening up for the community to continue to build and grow the play environment, or if you guys have been putting any thought into having something that's available now. So if somebody wants to incorporate other systems like RGB lighting or music or, some other non-destructive way of interacting with the game, is that something that's been talked about recently? Obviously, we're all crazy with delivering on time, but I just want to ask if you guys have thought about this much.
This is kind of, once more, coding. My department.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's kind of a funny question because we've got a holo table that we've been using on our photo shoots. Like a prop type of furniture. You've seen it probably.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And we are using LED stripes inside of it just to light it up, yeah? So there was an idea with Pawel that eventually, if we've got a catastrophe and something is burning, let's say on a table, should be emitting like red light, maybe we should hook up the whole table with our lighting system to the game ecosystem, and to use this whole surface to show off that we've got an earthquake, or eventually we've got some kind of fires, riots, etc. Yeah. Oh boy, that was a crazy idea, but this question coming from Todd. Yes, definitely. But first of all, we need to deliver the game that will be fully functional. But in the end, we want to open it for different type of opportunities, because it doesn't make any sense to close API just for our proposals. And in this case, it seems like a super open-minded question that I've got super open-minded answer. Definitely, we want to create an ecosystem that will be evolving. That means not only we are going to make new features and improvement scenarios, extending storyline, create new news, new type of features in game, update it, remove bugs, do some fixes. It also means that, as we've already seen, we've got extremely dedicated buggers that want to be a part of this project, and that's something totally unique. So yeah, our doors are open, but first of all, we want to deliver. So that's our biggest milestone. Afterwards, we are still going to work on this project. It isn't something that we are going to deliver and forget, especially that this is a fundament for upcoming future for us. So
well, hold on. Be careful with what you say.
I will always careful, but sometimes we need to tease about a couple of different things that we've got cooking for the future. Yeah, but in this case, using hue lights, using any kind of external third-party devices that will be controlling lights, this is freaking genius idea. I love it. Communication protocol is laying around. It isn't laying around. It's evolving. Right now, we are just improving, because even today we've changed. I'm just answering because I see that Todd is writing. So there was a question about the communication protocol that we are using. Right now, the inner protocol that is running on 8-bit CPUs, that communication side, this one-wire type of a protocol, is pretty much embedded inside of a game. But the most important thing is what is happening outside of it. So what is happening in between an ARC and also a companion app. So that's a Bluetooth connection. But even more, what is happening directly on this companion app, because that would be the perfect fit solution for us to give you an access to certain type of information that we've got in our system, and provide you this information with some kind of a data stream, with some kind of a API, just to let it out to do some kind of a third-party app that will be using Wi-Fi, etc., etc. So yeah, we are open-minded and we want to do this. But right now we are working our asses off 18 hours per day, usually, just to deliver it in time, and with all of those promises that we gave you during our Kickstarter campaign.
Yeah, no, that I love hearing that. I mean, obviously, I've invested far too much in hue lights, so if I can figure out a simple way to set it up and tie it in, I'm super for it. Okay, so and then we had another question that came in from Forged Iron, where he was asking about, if you're able to see how many colonies are settled on a particular planet, or how many games have been played, successful or not. So I can kind of sort of answer this one. I know that there will be obviously opportunities for people to play on unique levels, to be the first person to successfully colonize a planet, in which case they'll take responsibility for the naming of the planet. But I know that there's also some sort of a function where you can continue to build colonies on the planet. I believe it's ad infinitum. Is that correct? You can continue building colonies on a single planet?
If you choose the same planets more than once for the building your colonies, then you will build more and more colonies on the same planet, and the in-game occurrences will differ, taking the data from whether there is a colony or not on the planet that you're playing on.
Right. And now, is there any sort of like a benefit if you're playing on a planet that's already been colonized? Like, to me, it might seem like this is where it starts crossing over into weird gradations of the future megacorp idea, where like perhaps there's more free trade, or is there some like in-game change that is that you'll see if you're on a planet that already has another successful colony from another player?
I know that Kowal was working because I've been supervising his work. Kowal, that's our friend from our company. Hello, Kowal. Mikołaj Kowalczyk. He was working on a part of Exogen / Colonies component that pretty much was like a lore and scenario-driven interaction between colonies that are on one planet. So different status for different planets. For example, that it's populated, or eventually we've got like a outlaws bases over there. So we've got a low security, etc. So those different colonies will interact with each other, especially through the occurrences system. So those are in-game colonies events that are happening each month, each round, and those will be affecting each other. Because of that, it will be important where you are trying to create your colony. It's always better and easier to start a colony when you will be surrounded by different colonies, because those will be showing up in your occurrences, usually helping you a bit. Like, for example, you may receive additional scientists or colonists that will be helping you in this colony, maintaining good technical status, or eventually even paying taxes in your colony.
Yeah. I mean, I could definitely see a scenario where if you were on a planet with other colonies from other players, that maybe there's a greater likelihood for improved immigration just because people already know that the planet's been colonized. And I don't know. I mean, I can definitely see that being something that can help, early players, first-time players. I don't know how much you want to get into programming all that stuff, but I definitely see that there could be benefits to playing on pre-colonized planets as well.
I cannot say anything more than that we've got almost everything for that planned. And it's extremely huge part of a project, because I need to say that loud and clear. I'm surprised how many detailed things we've got under the hood that we need to go into really deep into the rabbit hole to understand mechanics, how things will be affecting each other. This seems like a small thing that you will see during the game as a one occurrence. But why this occurrence will be happening in this exact colony during this gameplay on this certain type of an exoplanet with those different colonies that are around you. This seems like a simple thing, because usually that will be just randomized from a database, but it's much different when it's based on real type of environment. So if you've got a couple of your friends from your megacorp on the same planet, they will be automatically helping your colony out. So that seems like a simpler solution for you to make a colony on this planet, because you know that you will be covered by other players. But if you will be doing a long shot, for example, that will be very first colony on a very remotely located star system, probably you will be all alone. You will be just waiting for this particular moment that you'll switch from being almost on a brink of a distraction and riots and chaos and lack of oxygen to being independent, also in terms of resource production on this planet. So those will be slightly two different type of gameplays, and we need to build a system that won't be that will be strict and honest about rules of engagement, but at the same time it won't be min-maxing situations for different two locations for your colony. Yeah, so those needs to be small things that will be affecting the game, but those cannot be things that will be ruining your game or giving you an automatic win. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. Okay, and then I got a couple more questions for you guys, but there's a few more questions that have popped up. So our friend Sniper Team Tango, he's talking about on the physical side of things, mentioning that with a hybrid game, it's not just a miniature that you plop on the board and maybe worst case scenario you paint. That's like the most you're using things. He mentions the durability. Now obviously you guys thought ahead about people wanting to paint these things and being able to disassemble the units to make it easier to do something like that. But when you guys had Lucas designing things and putting things together in SolidWorks, like how much of a discussion was put into trying to, create the best longevity for all of our parts and pieces and connectors, and how is this kind of played into the design process?
That's me again, hardware side. God damn it. We almost haven't spoke about it because Lucas is our expert. He was building hardware stuff like CNC, SolidWorks design, usability studies, etc. So he was building functional hardware tools for professionals for like 10 years altogether, like 9 or 10 years. So he's an expert. We've been discussing details, what kind of a solution for connecting corridors will be better for end customer in terms of ease of use, yeah? But also he was always looking after making everything as solid as possible, that it won't break. It's ABS. It isn't like a crappy plastic. All of those bits and pieces are pretty much thick. So those are also heavy. I'm surprised because we are losing a lot of materials. And also those aren't empty inside because everything, when you are closing the module, it's filled up with electronics inside. You've got also this glass piece that is inside. This is polycarbonate, so it's super strong. And it's closed from both sides with ABS. You haven't got like a loose small pieces, and you've got an extra corridors because we thought that you should have those because eventually you will have a nice dog that does something stupid things and you will lose one of those corridors. So those extra ones will be becoming handy. But that's one side of this medal. The second side is because, especially Casey, we've been working for a longer time already, customer service and support after sales. That's extremely important. Things will be lost. Those will get broken. I don't know, you'll be trying to play on let's say on a beach and suddenly a huge wave will come. Yeah, I don't know. I'm 100% sure that some of you guys will be doing exceptionally crazy things with those bits and pieces that will be shipping to you. So we just need to assume that there will be losses. So that's why we've got an extra overproduction just to have spare parts. So we'll be able to send you extra corridors, extra modules. The biggest issue will be with an ARC, so with a central module, because it's holding like your data bank. So it's holding your token. Finally, your virtual token will be modified into a hardware token. And this piece will be pretty much more complicated than anything else in the game. At the same time, if you will need to exchange it to a new one, we'll need to change your identity to be 100% sure that it was lost, because we'll need to recreate a new ARC with all your achievements in next gen and etc., with your aux flits, etc. So that's the biggest issue that we are looking at right now, because we need to do something with a database system that we'll use to control who has got what kind of a module without having your name and last name connected to it. So that's still work in progress, but we'll solve this issue. But beside of that, hardware side, I'm 100% sure that everything that could be done to make it as rocky, stable, and tough has been done and will be done. At the same time, I assume that you will find new ways to break it down.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know I'm for sure in favor of a running my dog data module number. So I don't know if we want to make that public, but I feel like that's definitely going to be a significant amount over the next coming years. I gotta say, I'm always impressed with Lucas thinking ahead, having a lot of time and experience as an engineer designing these things. You guys, programming and thinking ahead of all these things. This doesn't seem so much like a.
I'm too stupid to program things. We've got coders that are much better coders than Vlosky and me, because we are designers. We are on a lower level than our friends.
But we do understand what they're talking to us.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, but this definitely doesn't seem like this doesn't seem like a bunch of guys in a garage that decided to make a high-tech board game. Like it's clearly working. So I mean, let me just ask you a question, Blowski. Like when you guys originally thought about this, like when this was the first conversation in the living room one night after a different board game session, like how did you decide to approach like building out so kind of diverse and experienced of a team? To like, was it just when you started running into issues that you couldn't do, or was there more planning first? Like what came first, like the planning or like starting to create like from the ground up?
Max is more experienced than me in production of hardware and working with programmers and such. But we're, I don't know if we can say that, we're connected by playing tabletop games for a long time. So the basic idea about the game just grew up in his head, then later in mine also. But all these things that are electronic, that the hardware, the usability, the exogen, everything behind the cardboard and plastic, was mostly growing through time, because when you make a decision that you are putting some electronics inside your game, it opens up a lot of possibilities. So we just had to sit down by the table and talk through what possibilities we want inside our game, then find some people that can help us create it, and so we did. We had already contact with our engineer Lucas. We had few programmers that were working with Max for a longer time. We had plenty of people that helped us to create this, to even think with us what is possible, what is not possible, and how we can direct the game designing to make this product.
Okay, yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense. I probably approach it a similar way, but I mean, while I'm talking to you, let me
add something. Not everything was from the beginning. Some things just grew up in the process. So it's hard to answer the question. It wasn't like that. We just thought that the game is going to be like that, and we invited everybody who was important to build the product. It was growing through the time.
And yeah, no, I mean, since I've talked to Max about it, feels like it's like a tree, just constantly kind of branching out further and further and more directions. Okay,
but the biggest problem is to trim this tree where it needs to be trimmed.
Too many good ideas.
But Casey, we just need to be very strict and honest about one simple thing. It's like me and Blowski have been working on this project for a longer time already. But there's a lot of different guys behind us, and girls as well, that are working also on different sections of this project. So we've got coders that are doing exceptionally good job, and pretty much they are almost self-sufficient. We are just showing them direction, and we are working on together on this project. We've got Agnieszka Tomaszewska, which is she was responsible for costumes and working on this kind of a vintage sci-fi type of a look that we were aiming at. But she was helping last time in running the whole photo shoot session, because we were totally overwhelmed by the current situation in our company, focusing on a production, finishing something in a code, working on a beat, posting new things on social media. So she stepped up and helped us. So I'm just saying, this is kind of a teamwork that I never ever before seen in my life. Everybody are just doing exceptionally good job, trying really hard, but we are always visible with Blowski in the front of this team. But this is kind of a thing that we are building all together. There's more than 10 people involved into this process, and everybody are just silently doing the job. being behind us. I need to tell you guys that THM is way bigger in terms of a number of human beings being involved in this project than only me and Blosky and Casey.
Heads.
Yeah, exactly.
Than three, a lot more heads.
And that's something that I couldn't imagine 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, when we were just two crazy guys thinking about making, or three crazy guys trying to make
some number of crazy guys.
Some number of heads. Yeah, I just need to mention that because those guys they are awesome. We're paying them. They are working with us. They are working for us. But at the same time, this is like a family.
Yeah, but it's a very, very nice product to work on. So everybody who joins the team becomes more like a friend because there's so much positive energy behind it,
and so much to do.
Yeah, every hand is needed.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, all right. So real quick, there was another question that popped up. They were simply asking about, is there, other benefits that come along with being first, like when you colonize a planet, and how does that start? Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe when you are the first to colonize a planet, it's not when you send a colony there, but it's when that colony is actually successful when you complete the game. Correct? Max, Blosky, are you guys?
Yeah, we are over here. We are just thinking who should answer because that's pretty much also a Kowal thing. Because we were focusing just on the colonist side, and Kowal was working on this exogen type of meta game solution. That what is happening with your colonists afterwards. So if you will finish your game successfully, so somebody will win. Let's say, if you are playing solo co-op or semi co-op, so you will leave behind you an independent, fully functional and fleshed out colony. It may be burning, full of riots, but you finish the game successfully.
Yeah, so, as long as you've dragged the carcass of your colony across the finish line.
Exactly.
Successful.
Yeah, that happened a lot of times. Yeah. Anyway,
the way I play it happens more often than I'd like to admit.
But answering your questions, being first on the planet is mostly about fame for now.
Yeah,
having your possibility to name the colony after your because you will be getting those names that you've proposed in PMC system. You will be getting lots of these. From these, you will choose one. You will name your colony. If the planet has got a generic name, let's say Abunda 111249A6, it will be changed to your colony name because it's automatically becoming a capital city for this planet.
Right.
So if in this system nobody else finished his colony successfully, the system will take name from your planet. Because you've got one and only capital city.
Of course, if no one else did it before you, if you're first.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and first.
And all other players, as they will be creating their own colonies around you, they will be naming systems and planets, etc. Eventually, if you will be the last guy that will catch up on this crazy train, so you will be visiting a planet on which there are other finished colonies. You will be just adding yours. You will be still getting an option to name it, but the planet will have completely different name and also the system as well, because you won't be able to touch it. So there will be some kind of a rewards when you will be trying to become like a new guy in new neighborhood as a first player, but it's also way harder to make it happen.
That's why Exogen is so wide, so big, so everybody can find a place for his name on the planet or on a star and start building from there.
Yeah, I think everybody's in the back of their head got that as a goal. Like they have to have their planet. So, I mean, we kind of keep coming back to Exogen because it is a really new thing that hasn't really been as fleshed out as the game has been. But I know the game itself, Beyond Humanity Colonies, like so much has changed from the inception of the Kickstarter, even through the end of the campaign, as we continued to work on things like solo mode and making sure that we had a co-op and a semi-co-op version that worked. Do you guys want to talk about how the development of those things have been going? Because I know from time to time I hear about the completion of solo mode and the completion of co-op. But let's talk about some of the actual gameplay from the Kickstarter game. Like, where have you guys kind of been able to step back and say, this is done, this is ready? And is there anything that's still being tweaked and polished?
We have a lot of things like completed, and a lot of things that we need to work on still. We lately focused on the code that sits inside the ARC module. We have focused on the code that sits inside the modules, but we have working single play. Solo play. We have working co-op. We have created goals, like co-op goals that you will use while playing a co-op game. We have a new. It's not new now because you've seen it probably on our social media. The tile that you will be playing with on a solo mode. It's quite different because you're using all the managers, actually. You can use all the managers while playing solo mode. And so, yeah, we have that covered. We are still testing it, and probably will tweak few things around, but I think this area is more like closed. So that's why we're focusing on artwork for cards, on dimensions of every bit on the table.
So just at this point, design-wise, everything is fleshed out, and we're just moving on to physical production.
Yes, but in this case, the design is like living in two worlds, because it's something on the table and rules for players, and
right.
that huge thing behind it. So we are now. I have to admit that we are now focusing on that second thing, on everything that's behind the app, on Exogen, on importing the planets to your game, on cooperation between colonies. If you have, like we said before, if you have any colony on the planet you're playing on, you will have different occurrences in your game. So we are focusing. We are doing a lot of tweaks, but not in the table area.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think it's nice to be able to kind of start putting some of these things away. But obviously, it's such a huge project. There's so much about it, and I know that things are obviously going to continue to change. One of our guys is asking again how many boxes in total are being sent out. I believe with the close of the late pledges, with trying to have available products, for last minute sort of things, outside of our safety margins and our customer support margins, I believe in total it was 1,600 boxes. Is that correct, Max?
Yeah, with overproduction, because we aren't making all of those boxes as a boxes, because we've got overproduction of pretty much everything.
Right.
I mean, we are holding some of those parts just to have those prepped and ready to be shipped if anything will go wrong with your dog in some corridors. But those are pretty much just like an overproduction that will be held probably over here in Poland, just in our office, to be prepped to be shipped around in Europe. But some of those will be held also in USA. With KC, so it will be a bit faster solution, especially like sending something between different time zones, and not only countries, but as well in between Europe and USA or Canada, usually. Yes, it's much more complicated. And it's always about having those things as fast as possible, because it doesn't make any sense to receive one missing corridor or module after, I don't know, 4 weeks, let's say, yeah. Everybody would like to get those in days. So we'll be focusing on it. Beside of that, I'm pretty much sure about quality control that we are going to run and we are running currently. But as we've mentioned before, you will be losing those things. You will be trying to play, I don't know, in water or eventually
Underwater, yeah.
Yeah, underwater, exactly.
Extreme board gaming.
I'm a robotics engineer. I've seen all kind of crazy stuff being done with hardware tools and devices, electronics, IoT, etc. I know that I will be always surprised by creativity of human beings. So yes, we are just going to be prepared for that to ship extra parts if those will be needed. No questions asked.
If I may add something, even if it's possible to build a colony on a lava planet, it doesn't mean the game itself, the tabletop game, will sustain that conditions.
So we probably should put a warning on the box, not IP65 compliant or something of that nature, right?
On the other side, we're using non-flammable ABS. Don't try it.
Things like don't play underwater. Yeah.
Okay. And then there was one small question that I wanted to give an answer to, just because one of our guys was doing research in the background. So it looks like we're sending the game out to somewhere between 50 and 55 different countries around the world, which is actually a bigger number than I would have guessed at. But obviously the main places that we're sending to is America and Europe, and then Australia. Like, so those are kind of like the main areas which we have backers. So if you guys were interested in that.
That's 10 seconds. So United States, Germany, Poland, Canada, United Kingdom, France, Australia, and Netherlands.
Okay, yeah, I guess I could have given it a little bit more time. But yeah, about somewhere between 50, 55 countries in total, which is, pretty crazy. Okay, so now I just want to mention to everybody listening, if you guys have any questions, go ahead and throw them in the AMA chat channel. We have somebody there monitoring it, so that way they'll be able to come back to us. Let me see. We've got one more that just came in. Will multiple players be able to log into the companion app for a single game? And this goes back to something that I've brought up several times, because I'm a non-engineer. I have no idea of how to calculate what is difficult and what is easy.
Because I know that we are capable of making it like a remotely playable game.
If
use
people,
like a two boxes,
talking to each other about how they're attaching things to the board, or even if the app is sending it to the other player, telling them how to do it, kind of like online Battleship almost.
Yes, but always there's one biggest problem with it. We can always add features, especially that this is like a very open system, especially when you are thinking about a board game that you may update software remotely. So that's pretty much obvious.
Yeah, that's really cool.
But the biggest problem that we could face is that we'll constantly improve existing good game, or eventually I hope that it will be very good, and add new features and hold with a shipment and production processes, etc. Sometimes we just need to say stop and note those things on our additional lists of potentially very cool ideas for updates, and focus on delivering the promise. Otherwise, we'll be in 2024 thinking about, oh boy, adding VR without VR glasses, that's the very best thing that we may add. And this will end up like a Star Citizen project. And finally, everybody will be just waiting for something that they won't see during their lives. So that's
I think that's one of the really interesting things that I find about Three-Headed Monster and Beyond Humanity Colonies I mean, we always talk about how this is an evolution in tabletop gaming, board gaming. We talk about how it's revolutionary. And, some people obviously are completely at odds with that. They hate the idea. They want the analog thing. And, obviously anybody who's taken some time to listen to some of the people who've played this, they know that this game plays very much like a regular board game. Like the game is all on the table between the players. It's not in the app. It's not in a bunch of tablets and pages and button pushes, which is really great. But because of the way it is, the hybrid way it is, we can create the game that makes sense. We can create the game that's fun, send that out. But as other ideas like this, like the online thing or other changes happen, we don't need to necessarily print things and have people purchase and pay postage for, new changes and add-ons and upgrades. Like it can be programmed, it can be emailed to people. People can have it same day as it's released, which I think is really amazing. So my question for you guys, just, as a hypothetical, just conversational, like once this comes out, once people who aren't backers of this game start to hear about this more and how the system is hopefully working incredibly well with people being able to change, update, upgrade, refresh, and like have more continued interest in a game after purchase. Do you think that's going to become more normal? Do you feel like this might help kind of push the industry along?
I really hope so, because everything it's going to be a common sentence. Everything changes. So sorry for that. So I think the industry of tabletop games will also change. It has to, even if it grew up from the simple games that were not online, just a game that was between a few people sitting around one table. I think those games will show up because you can see evolution in every on every market, and I think this one will not be something different.
Yeah,
people that need something new, so the market makes the product.
But I need to add something. I've stopped thinking about it. I'm just fully focused on Beyond Humanity right now. It seems like our vision and idea for this game has been successful on Kickstarter. So people believed in this project. Right now, you guys became a part of this project and you are creating it with us, giving us even feedback and playing metagame. And you will be supporting, hopefully, also BH Colonies, because that will be an evolving project as well, like XGen. And this kind of showing me a completely different approach. Why we should look at the whole industry when we've got dedicated small community right now, but hopefully it will be growing in the future. And it's all about action and reaction. We are just listening to you. And this is like we want to create the very best game that can be made. But we know that this is always trying to catch this rabbit and running around, and it won't be perfect. But the journey towards this certain point is extremely. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely say that kind of being able to sit on the sidelines, not necessarily be involved with the design process, I've seen how much external influence has really kind of pushed and propagated this game into the future. So, having the community that we do, that's actually incredibly, not only positive, but helpful. Like we have so many people here on the Discord channel, which are jumping in, actually taking over roles and responsibilities. We've had two that we've, upgraded to monitors and moderators, which has been such a huge help for people like me who are always kind of slow to adopt new technologies. It's been really amazing to have stuff like that happen for us. But when you talk about having the community kind of help, it's funny because we got a question from Forged Iron, which is kind of the same sort of thing, where I believe it's a possibility to think up things that maybe we hadn't thought of and kind of flesh things out. And Forged Iron had asked, if you're playing the game, and if there's anything that would change difficulties for a player, like let's say there's an extremely hard planet, they have a colony that fails, is there anything that can be done through that information being added to the metagame in Exogen? Is there anything that makes a follow-up mission or another attempt at colonizing easier in the future, like if you're tackling an extremely hard planet?
Pawel?
I think I'm thinking on the answer. I think the basic thing that you can do is once more facing the already known things that will jump against you. But of course, when you know the planet that you're going to that you will be playing on.
Do you mean like sending pioneers to get all the extra meta information? Okay.
So when you have the whole information about the planet, you can choose the fleet that you want to take with you to the colony. Those fleets will allow you to, I don't know, take some more water or take some more money or take a module that will be already there on the beginning of your game. That will allow you to be prepared to colonize this planet. That's what you were asking about.
Yeah, so just to summarize what you're saying, like obviously within the way the system is built and presented currently, if there's an extremely difficult planet, by sending pioneers in Exogen, you get more information, but then you're still kind of left to you as the player to decide how to interpret that. Now, obviously, there's only so many ways you can interpret. There's no water on this planet, but it's up to you to kind of take that information and assimilate it into how to prepare, what additional fleets to bring, which are, if people aren't familiar with some of the upgrades and updates, and fleets are additional vehicles.
Also, what's not to do during the play, for instance, if the planet is tectonically unstable, is that the correct word?
Well, something like that.
If it's unstable, you will try to play without catastrophes, because they will hit you with a double strength, for instance.
Yeah, spread further. But okay, but I mean, outside of just the player aspect, is there anything that can be done in Exogen? Is there any sort of projects or different types of missions that can be done that can change the difficulty of the planet?
Players cannot affect directly planets
the
through
difficulty.
Exogen. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I cannot say more, but there may be something in the colonies in the future that will maybe change the exoplanets and environment. But I cannot say more because still we are rolling out lore and scenarios and the storyline that we've got created for it. So we don't want to shock people with a bit too deep a world that is filled with details.
And too many spoilers.
Especially that we've got an option to tell the story in a very slow manner. Right now, the time goes on Exogen, and we are releasing different news online. So you guys are reading those. You are also discussing those. I'm seeing those discussions. I know that a couple of different guys were getting in touch with me trying to get more information about those things that are happening over there. But yes, all of those things are interconnected. And with wrote scenario for this first chapter that is happening right now, we've created this scenario before starting Exogen. Right now, we are just making graphics to illustrate different news. And you are living this story like
executing it.
Yeah, executing it, exactly. There will be a couple of different things that will be affecting the game itself on the very high level. Those will be community missions that will be in Exogen, as well as those will be in Colonies. So, but those will mean that you cannot do this by yourself, but you may help one greater. You may work on a one major obstacle to try to get rid of it with different players to achieve some kind of a reward in the end as a person, like one company that will be receiving reward for participation, but also to change the outcome of community missions. And those will be happening somewhere soon because we need to test those on XGen before using those in Colonies. But those will be affecting how the world will look like. So, and this also will give you an option to pretty much vote on the shape of this world in this case, because usually those will be a crossroads in our scenario timeline, and you guys will be choosing in which direction the whole humanity will be going. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I love hearing that. Like, I don't know, of our listeners, like, feel free to chime in if it's something you've even paid attention to, or if you are excited about or could live without. But I like having, this integrated lore. Like a lot of games, when they come in, you're presented with a backstory, you're presented with the story once you play the game, and that's sort of it. But I love, because this is an online thing, because there is this game that we can all play together, that there's a story that's coming out, and it's happening. I don't know if you guys are paying attention. It's happening in real time. Like, as we go through the days and weeks, different things will happen in the Beyond Humanities universe that are actually affecting things in the metagame, and those things can transition over into the board game themselves, which I find fun. Like, that's one of the few things that I actually get to contribute. So I enjoy it. But in that same vein, with these community missions and these scenarios, what are you guys' thoughts to ones that are created by the community?
I must say, for the beginning, that I can see how much Max and Kowal are putting effort into creating the lore, the history, the world, the universe, and because I'm not the man to take it's not my part of the project. So, but yes, we can do it. We have the living history world. That means we can maybe we have a scenario, the basic scenario for it, but we can change things. We can accept things that the community will come up with, and put them into play, put them in Exogen or even Colonies to, I don't know, feed the community with the data, or take that data from the community and put it in, scenarios or in such. That is possible.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just sitting over here coming up with bad ideas, as is, my habit. But I find it so interesting, like the possibilities of having community-based scenarios and missions that actually involve actual players. Like, perhaps, one particular corporation is the victim of X situation, and they could actually be impacted in game, or I don't know. I find so many things like that amazing, but it goes back to the thing again of like, okay, these are things that we can add, these are things that we can do after the game is out.
But in the end of the day, we have to choose which of them we can add, and which of those deserve to put time.
Well, let's talk about that. So, I mean, I know that we just recently let everybody know that, the 32-bit boards came in. That's kind of the main CPU of your game system. That's the main thing. And the programming side, the engineering side of running the game, the code, was actually pretty robust. So big, in fact, that you actually needed to make changes not only to the processor size, but how much memory storage was on there, so that way if there was any changes, the EEPROM. So if there's already kind of this forethought of being able to upgrade the game, be able to have more capabilities for stuff in the future. I mean, do you guys want to perhaps talk about some of the less secretive?
Remember that the problem with the place inside isn't the problem with putting what we already have, but planning what we can do in the future.
Right, exactly.
We have to add some space to be prepared
for new functionality.
For new functionality, for some changes, for things that we have to decide now that we want to add in the future.
Yes, because we'll be able to change software remotely with some kind of a software updates, etc. But the biggest issue that we are facing right now is to have all of those crazy ideas in our mind already right now, like what kind of a crazy ideas we'll have in the future, just to be prepared for that.
And decide which of them are more important than others.
Yes, not to devastate the price tag for one Arc module because it's already a bit expensive and it's like a freaking PC. We've got RTOS, that's real-time operating system that is running on it. We've got memory, we've got a lot of different modules that are working with Bluetooth communication, with an NFC reader. We can write NFC, so we'll be using those auxiliary fleet cards to record different things on those physical pieces. We are, of course, communicating with the whole 8-bit ecosystem that is underneath. I mean, using LEDs, reading the shape of this network of those modules on a table. But finally, those are simple things because the most sophisticated part of this project is pretty much engine that is running the game and incorporating all of those things that are happening under the hood. I mean, simulating those living human beings that are voting on decrees, being a part of this democracy ecosystem that we are creating in this colony. A lot of different small things, a lot of math that is happening underneath that is pretty much sophisticated on the same level like SimCity 2 or 3000, and those were pretty much sophisticated simulations in terms of math that was running underneath. And a lot of those small things. And finally, you're asking yourself, okay, so we'll have like a couple of different types of occurrences. So these monthly events, how many of these we'll have during our shipment, like types, with certain description of actions that those will be making, because we aren't storing even text for these inside of an Arc, because this is stored on a companion app. And it doesn't make any sense to hold text on a physical piece,
Right.
Just to save memory. And you are thinking, 300 seems like a lot, Suddenly we are looking at the list, more or less 1,000 of these, and suddenly one of our coders, Mateusz, is calling me like, Max, you should hold your horses right now, because we are certainly looking at the huge and gigantic problem with holding all of those functions and those hard-coded things that we want to have on it. So even save game with logs will be stored outside of a main memory that we've got on it, just to move it outside of the main CPU piece. Because right now we are facing situation that we are using top-end type of a CPU from this line of MCUs that we chose for this project, and there's nothing above it. So we kind of
you need to make it work at this point.
Small PC.
Right, exactly. It's good. Everybody's just going to get a mini Mac with an Arc glued to the top of it. Okay.
So and it's always about fighting for less power being used as well, because right now we know that we are pushing towards 30 hours of continuous work time of an Arc with modules. And that's a huge upgrade, because during Kickstarter campaign, we've got 12 hours. Right now, we are looking at 30 hours. We also incorporated blue LEDs, and that's a huge upgrade, because those are chewing through electricity like hell. But finally, we've came out with a solution, and we've got blue light inside, and that's huge success. And even so, we've got still 2.5 more work hours on regular batteries, and you may use rechargeable AA batteries. So that makes sense, because that's Good for
The most
environment
com-
as well.
Oh, okay. Oh, rechargeable. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm being crazy about those things, so I need to repeat this one thing. So
And
yeah,
the blue LEDs, does that come from the conversations we had about players who are red green colorblind, or
also, but
also? Oh, okay.
yeah, because we are prepping everything to be color branded friendly. I hope that Blosky will mention a couple of different things about it in a second. But looking at the LEDs, we weren't using blue, very sci-fi color, because it's using a lot of electric power. So in this case, using green is much better solution for us. But finally, we've find out a very good solution for our needs. And right now, we are super happy to tell you that we'll have green and blue as two main colors, and red will be a special one used for your beautiful riots, shootouts,
Fires,
and yeah. So
all the things that you don't want to see in game.
Yeah, but it looks neat.
Okay, well, here, I'm going to try to start closing us out, getting us towards the end. If anybody else has any questions, feel free to drop them in. But I want to go out with a bit of a bang. So we've really been gun shy about hinting at it or talking about it, because all the efforts truly are going towards delivering Colonies. But I know that we've intentionally and unintentionally mentioned there are more games coming and more things that are being worked on in the future. So we're at some point going back to Kickstarter. We will not be a first-time publisher anymore, so we'll hopefully have a lot more people feeling comfortable once we've delivered this game. But once Colonies is in people's hand, once it's the best game that's ever been seen or played, what's next? What can you guys really talk about right now?
Silence. I cannot say too much, especially that we are on an early stage of the next project. But we've got a plan, as I've mentioned on Facebook, also on Discord. We've got a plan, and that's a plan that hasn't been created by one person. It's teamwork as well. So the whole team is pretty much working with the same mindset in this case. There will be new game in Beyond Humanity universe that will be totally different from Colonies. I mean, totally different in every possible way. Besides of that it will be hybrid. It will be using Exogen, and it will become a part of a whole ecosystem. That won't be something that you need to buy to continue playing Colonies. This will be completely different type of experience. But this will be an experience in the very same world.
Okay,
and
so
I cannot say more beside of that after delivery you will get more information about it, because first of all, production.
Right, number one.
Repeat what we were saying from the very beginning. The Beyond Humanity is a universe that we want to cover few games that
to really flesh out.
Yeah, that will be able to interact with each other. So that's the promise we have always on our minds, and that's what we are doing.
No, that's perfect. I mean, I think the number one thing that everybody wants is to get what we promised, and I think that's a big thing. Okay, well, unless there's any other questions, I think this is probably a pretty good place to close out. People are always going to want to jump to the end of things. I love talking about what's in the future. But I just want to reiterate that this future game, it's still going to use Exogen. It's still going to be a part of the universe. So I feel like obviously it's a continuation of the same lore, backstory. But I mean, are you seeing that, thematically the same? Are things progressing well? Are things becoming a more unified universe throughout all these colonies? Or what's the kind of direction you want to take this stuff?
Max, you have the best idea what we can say and what not.
Oh boy.
You're asking hard questions.
Yes, tricky questions. It's really hard to answer those questions. It's like talking about something that I cannot say anything about it at the same time to create value in my speech. Yeah,
I think what we can say is that we want our games in Beyond Humanity universe to be friendly for a lot of people. So it's going to be really different. Maybe you will be surprised, maybe not. But it's not going to be Colonies 2, but very different game that will, but it will be, I don't know, connecting with Colonies. In the future, it's going to build its own history, affect the world, the universe. You'll see.
Okay, so I mean, can we expect it to be a very positive and fun evolution of the universe, or are things getting more aggressive, more fraughtful, more dystopian, or
dystopian? Yeah, it's like I'm this guy responsible for universe, so pretty much I may say that we are already working with a couple of guys that are definitely much better writers than me, and we are going to work with a few others as well. All of us are looking at sci-fi as a really dark and dangerous world where pretty much the biggest monsters are human beings. And cyberpunk is pretty neat setting that I love, not because of implants and I don't know, cybernetics or global network and cyberspace. I really love about the real cyberpunk, the question about our humanity, about being human being, what makes us human beings, and what exactly is happening right now with society, and how is it going to look in next 10, 20, 50 years, or eventually after in next century. Yeah. So those are questions that I don't want to give you any kind of an answer. I just want to create one or eventually a lot of different options from which you may choose your own with Colonies, and also with new games we'll try to explore more what may happen in the future, still being really loyal to hard sci-fi settings without any tricky kickoff warp style engines, etc.
That's really interesting. So if I'm understanding that right, you're kind of talking about building games which are in a sense like a philosophical and moral sandbox for the players to kind of decide. Is that what you're
It's way too much.
I think what Max wanted to say, that we don't want to give the answers, but we want to ask some questions.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. You're proposing things that the players then can take and discuss at their own table and in their own hearts.
This is something that surprised me. Where when I was seeing a lot of different guys playing BHC, and people that I knew that those are really nice guys, they were becoming oh boy, they were becoming freaking monsters. They were just creating slave camps for those for those colonists.
Are you talking about me?
No. But you remember a couple of...
I've done it.
I've been surprised because we are giving a sandbox solution. So you are creating, in case of a colony, colonies, you are shaping this colony according to your current needs and eventually to your mood, etc., with other players, or eventually in a solo. Yeah. So those colonies end up much different one from another, and that's super. That's one of the very best things that I was usually paying attention to. I was looking at people playing this game. Sometimes you see beautiful blonde that is sitting on the front of a table, and she looks like she will find like a bird with a problem with wing or something, and she will do anything just to make it happy and healthy, etc. But suddenly, after like 1 hour sitting in the front of a table, she's becoming a warden of a slave camp, and she's devastating other players, creating something that is completely different that you've imagined looking at her during the first moments of the test play. Yeah, this is freaking amazing. I love it.
Well, I think
Colonies.
that comes back to why we all love tabletop gaming, why we love like these role playing experiences. I mean, I know this isn't like a traditional, White Wolf or Wizards of the Coast type of role playing game, but I find myself after having a couple games in, really kind of taking it as sort of a serious thing, looking at it more realistically. I mean, obviously, I've had difficulty with that because I've played in a non-permanent way. I think once the backers get their games and they're playing games that build off of each other and that they're, permanent failed colonies and permanent successful colonies throughout the universe, I really am interested to see how this sort of, approach to how the universe works and how it persists and how you treat it is going to kind of go into the daily gameplay.
And remember that every colony you will play will stay there and affect other colonies on this planet.
Oh,
eventually
yeah,
as a ruin as well. So just remember, all your failed colonies are staying in the system as well.
Yeah, no, I plan on making plenty of pirate colonies out there.
Fantastic fun.
Pirate stations. Okay, well, I mean, we're just about out of time, but I guess it makes sense to talk about what is happening right now. Obviously, with Three-Headed Monster, we've got Exogen out there. It's something to keep people entertained and engaged while we wait for final delivery. When we talk about Exogen, I know there's constantly updates happening and there's stuff that's constantly kind of in the backlog of works. But, is there anything that you guys want to talk about as like updates that are coming soon or any big changes?
I may say that we are slowly coming forwards and getting closer and closer to a stable version. I don't know, maybe in 4 weeks or something like that. We'll have a first stable version, but it doesn't mean that the work is finished because, as we've mentioned, it will be a work in progress. So I may spill a surprise, but currently we've got 4 mission types, and we are planning to have total of 8 different mission types till game delivery. Colonies delivery. So we are going to incorporate those into the system, implement those. Us will be working on the code, removing bugs, but also will show you new news from the world, and you will see new events happening in the background. And also, this will be interconnected with those new missions that will pop up. This isn't one thing because you're getting really fast in terms of how you're expanding around. I may say it won't spoil any kind of a surprise, but have your eyes opened because you'll never know what you can find. There can be really interesting things hidden inside of some regions, let's say. Yeah. So pay attention to news because those definitely will be selling you storyline. So don't assume that we've cut Plasteel from the market because you were too fast in terms of expansion. This was a part of a storyline that we are rolling out. So all of those news, those are randomized. Those are interconnected with each other. And second thing is that have your eyes open because definitely I'm 100% sure that you haven't seen everything yet.
Yeah. Okay. No, I like that. And I don't know if everybody caught some of these last updates, but we did put out some news on social media and through the different channels about how in-game, plastisteel has been removed as a tradable item from the marketplace in Exogen. And again, this is part of the storytelling, part of the role-playing and world building for beyond humanity. So I really encourage you guys to try to, connect with the social media, follow us. I think it's going to be really fun stuff that we continue to build on and really just kind of make this a fully flushed out story that the players like you guys are living in and building yourselves. So I love that you're here. I love that you're supporting. I love that you're playing, but definitely make sure you are connected, because this is going really fun places, really different from any other board game that I can think of. But I think that's all we have time for. Max, Pavel, thank you guys so much for being here and talking to us and sharing all these informations.
That was a pleasure as always, Casey.
No problem.
Long time no see.
Yeah, I know. We're going to have to, now with no Gen Con, what are we going to do? Anyways, but I just want to thank everybody. Go ahead and leave any sort of messages you like back in the chat channels. We're going to post this as a recorded message or a recorded AMA, so you can always come back to it. But anyways, at any rate, thank you guys very much, and we'll have to do this again soon.
Thanks.
Thank you. See ya, guys.
All right. All right. See you guys.
Yeah, see you.
Yum yum, yum yum. This AMA made possible by Algae Burger, your colony's favorite artificial food. It goes through you faster than light. Yum yum, yum yum, yum yum. Be sure to order an algae burger at your next visit to the Colony Mess Hall, or find a dehydrated algae burger on all working level vending machines. Yum yum, yum yum.